Hey everybody, it's your favorite gentleman coming to you live on Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today you all are in for a very, very special treat. This man goes without saying. This man is very powerful and he's on a movement to change the way prisoners in the correctional facilities are treated. You won't want to miss 1 second of this powerhouse, dynamic brother who's changing the absolute game. Stay tuned, stay with us. You won't want to miss a second of the show. Here we go. Hey everybody, welcome to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today we have a powerhouse speaker, Mr. Jaquial Durham, who this man received his bachelor's degree in African and African American Studies with a minor in Women and Gender Studies from Winston-Salem State University, focusing on hip hop and activism. Mr. Jaquial is on a movement. He's an entrepreneur, community organizer, and creative producer. He is cultivating consciousness concerning issues in education, pop culture, and politics. As a creative producer, he's the CEO of Public Culture Entertainment Group. Mr. Jaquial, his appreciation for hip-hop is front and center in his life and in his work, positioning the art form as a voice that uniquely emphasizes societal issues in a palatable manner to translate into tools of activism and organizing. And he is on a movement today to broadcast and shine a spotlight on the injustices in the Lee correctional facilities and the movement that he is on. Please help me welcome to the stage the incredible, the amazing Mr. Jaquial Durham. Welcome, brother. Welcome to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show.
Man, how you doing? How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on here.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us here today. Sir, you are on a movement. You are on a train. This is a powerhouse. You are a powerhouse speaker and you are making movements. But I always have to ask, successful people have successful habits, things that they do day in and day out every single day, no matter what. What is it that you do every day that really sets the tone for your day?
Man, for me, it's hip hop. It's music. I would just say that it's music. Whether it's hip hop, whether it's jazz, whether I'm in a Gold Link or Anderson .Paak mood. I saw my day. I would listen to music. I told someone a couple of days ago. You are what you consume. And I think that for me, I like to listen to. When I say I think for me is. Sometimes I'm in a Nipsey mood, sometimes I'm in a Nas mood, I'm in a Jay-Z mood. I like to call them wealthy rappers. I like to listen to very wealthy rappers and just people who just have those, who just impact the culture in so many different ways. And so for me, I just have my days, man. I listen to music. I just put my headphones on too. And because I think it's different, it's a different tone, it's a different vibe for me when I put my headphones on versus listening to it through my surround sound. So, I put my headphones on, I listen to music, while I'm getting ready for the day, thinking about what I'm going to do today, thinking about what I need to work on today. I sit my laptop down, I get busy, and I listen to music all day to day. So that's how I get my day started. I think that's what it is for me that keeps me motivated, keeps me going.
Facts. And he named out some powerful artists and some music producers, and he bumped shoulders with a lot of these people, y'all. And so it's like, it depending on what you're going to get done today. You on the grind mode, you on the hustle mode, you on the CEO corporate America mode. If you could sit down and really just spend like a couple hours and just pick their brain, out of Jay-Z, Nas, who's another big head, just who would you want to sit down with in the industry and just pick their brain and get business in? 50 Cent, right? Curtis Jackson. Who would you sit down with and just pick their brain for like a couple hours?
Man, I think I'm about to go with Jay. I would have even loved to, wish I had opportunity to also sit down with Nipsey, but I think it would probably be Jay-Z. I think that when I listen to Jay-Z interviews, in many ways for him to be as, older, a lot older, and then I look at me and myself in my 20s, I'm like, man, he's saying a lot of things that I say, and so it's just like, man, at his age, how would I be thinking? If I'm thinking the way he think now, if he say a lot of things that I've either said before, or that, he may just be articulating it different. But I think Jay-Z, I would love to sit down and just have a conversation with him and dialogue with him about some of the things that I'm doing. I try to manifest different things, like I try to say, I have a technology company that I'm building. And I'm like, man, this would be great. This would be great. Something I feel like Jay would want to invest in or partner with or collab on, like these are different, this is how I think, because it's just like, like I said, you are what you consume. And if you continue to think things and manifest things, those things can happen, so for me, it would have to be Jay-Z. 'Cause I feel like in many ways, at such a youthful age, I think in similar ways, just based on the interviews that I hear, I'm gonna base it on that.
Right. That man would set you up for success for sure.
Mhm.
I would wanna rub shoulders with Master P. I would wanna him and
Mm.
just his rags to riches, but just how he got what I think it was like a $10,000 insurance policy and just
Hmm.
grew it into
Hmm.
industry. So yeah, tightens
Oh
the
man.
industry, brother.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, and I tell you, man, you can't. When I went to college, my freshman year in college, man, I kind of struggled to matriculate through college a little bit because I was changing majors. But when I first went to college, I went to college because Master P, because I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a Dame. I want to be a Biggs. I want to be a Master P. I want to be a Jay-Z. I want to be a Diddy. I want to be. I never want to be a rapper. And Master P, even he knew he was a businessman. But his story is a lot different from other people. But I think that when I told my grandmother, she said, "We're gonna go to college." I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to be those individuals. And she was like, "Nah, that ain't what you're doing." So, she really didn't understand it, of course. Like these people aren't just rappers, he's a businessman. And so, Master P is one of the ones that I definitely for sure just respect the story and respect the hustle. And you and the mindset of the fact that, like, yo, we're consumers of so many different things, but let's talk about ownership. And in essence, when it boils down to it, Nipsey, Master P, Jay-Z, I think Nipsey and Master P, I think Nipsey just had a cooler way about approaching the ownership business. You know what I mean? Nipsey just in a cool, suave way, in a more millennial way, we're doing the same thing that Master P doing. He just made it
Right.
look cooler.
Facts. Hashtag facts. Sir, you have a very popular saying, and I wanted to shift gears, and it's a part of the movement that you wanted to shine the light on the Lee Correctional Facility and the mistreatment of the inmates in there. But you have a very popular saying that says, you feel that incarceration isn't the answer. Mass incarceration is not the answer in dealing with people in these facilities. Why do you say that, and what is the right answer?
Yeah. So for me, I come from I'm a prison abolitionist. I love Angela Davis, and when in college, when I started to do this work, and this documentary ain't just something I just kind of just came out of the blue and doing. This is like really my research and the work that I was doing while I was in college. My senior seminar was focused, a section of it was focused on hip hop and activism, and the third section was focused on mass incarceration. And so it was really just reading a lot of books, and really grappling with this idea of what a prison abolitionist is. I can't say that it was something that I was like, oh man, yeah, that's me. I had to really understand and listen to more people, and like the Cornel West and the Michael Eric Dysons and the Angela Davis and Michelle Alexander, reading those texts, reading those books, and trying to understand like what is the answer. And it's a very difficult struggle, but I think it takes an unshackling of the imagination and the mind to really say, let's get to the root of issues, right? Let's really get to what's causing these issues to transpire to lead to incarceration. So I think it starts with understanding in the 80s how the Reagan administration and the Nixon administration really shut down mental health facilities to really boom this mass incarceration. And even starting with the Black Panthers, you used to have a lot of Black Panthers that are still incarcerated today. And so when you understand the context of why incarceration beginning started, or the boom of mass incarceration, why it started, you would say, okay, like there's root cause to these issues, and prison only, only is a band-aid to those issues. And so we never really get to the issue because I think it's either Dyson or Angela Davis said, prison doesn't disappear societal issues, it only disappears human beings. And so we have to really understand that, for me, I don't want to answer. I don't think it's fair for me to have the only answer to outside of incarceration. But I think that we have to really start with understanding that a lot of, issues are mental health related. And I think I always say that, for a lot of people of color, it's difficult for us, and we struggle with saying that, oh, these people are only trying to use mental health as an excuse. It's kind of hard to convince people that mental health is real when we really grapple with mental health ourselves. We really sometimes struggle with mental health, and so it's like, no, we really have to understand that mental health is a thing, and that
We'll be right back, y'all. We are going to go to a quick commercial break, y'all. Stay tuned, stay with us, stay engaged. We'll be right back. And this is part of show business. See you guys soon. Good day, podcast listeners. This is your boy, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I wanted to let you guys know that we will be rolling out a new feature and adding a join sponsor button next to the subscriber button here at the bottom of your screen. Once you click the button, it will display 3 membership levels. Gentleman Gentry, which is our entry level, Duke Duchess, which is our season level, and the Emperor and Empress, which is our most sophisticated level, which you will receive unique perks and benefits at each differing level and gain access to our community tab. We will also be sharing polls, upcoming events, and interviews, as well as receive feedback from our sponsors directly. Your support helps me find new and exciting guests to bring to the stage live. Well, in order to get the higher end speakers, it requires, some, you guessed it, money. So thank you for tuning in to my channel. And if becoming a sponsor sounds good to you, then select the join button below and choose your desired sponsor level. Let's continue to grow and serve the future of generations of men and women to come. Love you guys. Bye. Welcome back, y'all. This is Gentleman Style Podcast Show. We have the incredible Mr. Jaquial, and he is spilling the tea on how mass incarceration and the mindset behind it is truly affecting the way how we do and how we function and how we operate as a society, and shifting the mindset of, instead of mass incarcerating everybody and putting people away in prison, he just broke down that we need to shift to a more rehabilitative mindset and just almost practically do away with it, because it's not necessary. That's not how you fix mental health. Is I'm gonna just lock you away and make you disappear. Is to truly work on what's the root cause of the problem, and that's the movement he's on. Welcome back, Mr. Jaquial. Thank you for breaking that down for us, sir. I appreciate you, brother. We went to a quick commercial break. So you produced a major film focused on the corruption in the prison systems in South Carolina. Can you talk a little about that film?
Yeah, so this project particularly started. I've been doing research on this project and this issue for about 2, I guess now 3.5 years, and it mainly was fueled by, my father was sentenced to 20 years in prison, 85, having to serve 85% for manufacturing and distribution of crack cocaine, or 2 counts of manufacturing distribution of crack cocaine. And so when my father was first incarcerated, one of the first places he went was Lee Correctional Facility. And Lee Correctional Facility is known for people who are lifers or violent offenders. Mind you, my father was a drug charge. So I think my father was maybe younger than me right now at the time that he was incarcerated, and so And so since maybe about 8, 9 years old, I had been going into prison to visit, for visitation purposes. And so I always had this very unique, wonder and curiosity about prison culture in general. And just, through our literature exchange, excuse me, through our literature exchange, sometimes he would share these stories and share how he did, or when I would go visit him, he would share how he do certain things in prison, or how cook certain things, and it was just a bunch of curiosity, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. But when he came home, he and I was at the store. We were walking around the store. He'd been home now going on 5 years, and when he came home, I was just on the store and I was on my phone and I was just on social media and I ended up seeing this video of the Lee Correction riot that went viral, and thankfully a lot of the guys who was incarcerated had cell phones, and so they was recording the riot as it was taking place. And so this, according to Democracy Now, was the biggest prison riot. Now is this past April, 28 years in the United States history, the biggest prison riot in United States history in 28 years this past April. And nobody was talking about it. And it wasn't until 2019. So Lee Correction happened in 2018 and Parchment Riot happened in 2019. Lee Correctional left 7 inmates dead. I think about maybe 17, 18 inmates were badly injured. Parchment happened. And I think 5 inmates dead, 2 escaped. And I remember at the time I was invited to speak on T.I.'s podcast expeditiously. So I was just watching some of his interviews, catch his interview style. And he and David Banner were talking about the Parchment Riot. And so when I was watching this, I'm like, what they're failing to acknowledge or just, maybe misinformation, was that after the Lee Correctional Riot happened, 38, 39 inmates were sent to Mississippi. And so for me, it was like, oh, there's a link between Mississippi prisons and South Carolina prisons. And later, when I explored, it was an organization called Core Civic. And so when I ended up doing my research on Core Civic, I ended up also finding out that 2 inmates from South Carolina also died in Mississippi. And so for me, it was like, man, like seeing the Yo Gottis and Jay-Z and Rock Nation file a first class lawsuit against Mississippi, but not understanding that, man, there's a link between what's going on in South Carolina and Mississippi. So, for me, it was like, I kind of took the Nipsey approach and pretty much all money in and like, look, I'm going to do this on my own. I had major networks. I pitched it out. People were interested. But for me, it was like, too much time is going by and with, really no feedback right now. And so, or, people wasn't trying to really give me what I want. And so I just really all money in and did it on my own. And, so it came from just being about South Carolina to being a docuseries. So now, thankfully, a lot of the people inside inside South Carolina Department of Correction, a lot of the guys, man, they really support me. They really love that I'm bringing exposure to this project and to the inhumane conditions in South Carolina. And, I send my love, to those 7 families who lost a loved one and everybody who just have loved ones in South Carolina, because what I learned about the prison culture in South Carolina is very interesting. It's very unique. Is almost like, South Carolina schools in essence, like most prisons get money based on the population or based on the, what's brought into the state. So if you live in a poor state like South Carolina, your prison not going to get anything. So while states in California and other states like, maybe in New York are getting maybe 40 to 50,000 per inmate, South Carolina only getting 20, so that goes to show you're going to get $20,000 per inmate. The conditions that these gentlemen are living in is horrible, and we get to expose that and share that. And I've had some people from South Carolina Department of Correction reached out and wanted to know information and wanted to kind of get the tea on the project, but it's like, like if y'all really want to, if y'all want to do damage control, y'all more than welcome to. But for me, those who closer to the problem are closer to the solution. So for me, I'm going to the people who are in prison, people who have people in prison, and people who really know what it's like to either have a loved one incarcerated or those who really truly live that experience. Those are the ones that's on the project. I know, not no celebrities, not no people who fally removed from the situation. Is really authentically, genuinely done and intentional about those who are on this project. And I give a shout out to also those who are incarcerated in South Carolina prisons, because they also connected me to the ones in Mississippi, because I also learned that these men are very well connected, more than we think we are, more than we think they are. Like these men, they like, oh, you doing Mississippi next? look, this is what we're gonna connect you with. And they really, really connected me to people in Mississippi for sure. I'm like, man, I ain't mean tell me I ain't gotta go to nobody. Like, people in prison really made sure this project was successfully done.
Powerful. So, did I miss something here? Your dad was still incarcerated at Lee Correctional when the riot happened.
No, he came home maybe about like he came home a year prior, like a year prior. Had he had been there one more year, he would have been involved in that situation, But my dad, he'll share his story, about the riots that he was involved in. My dad really, really, one thing I learned when I was trying to really find guys, who had been incarcerated who really had done time. My dad was probably one of the only ones who wasn't either gang related or any type of organization who really done some real time. He really have been involved in some serious situations in prison. To not be affiliated in any type of organization, whether that's Islam religion organization or whether it's Blood, Crip, any of those organizations, like he was just doing his time. And so he'll share, in him being a regular guy in prison doing his time, but how he still got involved in certain situations and just really just true prison culture, prison light situations. So, like my dad, thankfully home, but he definitely experienced some things while he was incarcerated for sure.
Amen. 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 Glad your father is home. That's major and that's powerful and that's important, right? That he was able to
Hmm.
survive and make it through and to be able to share those stories are
Hmm.
impactful. Just similar to what you're doing, to share the story and shine a light on what's happening and what's been happening in there for years. And the
Hmm.
trade relations between the Mississippi and other prisons is almost like the modern day slave trade. It's almost like,
Yeah.
it's planned. It's I heard someone call it, what's it, like the electronic plantation. It really is, right? Once you're
Yeah.
in the system, once they get you, it's
Mhm.
hard to kind of to pull out. So
Yeah.
thank
No, I
you.
mean, I think it's interesting, man. One of the things that popped out to me, even as me being, educated as I am and I really studying this work, it wasn't until I really, really, truly, like, it's like getting a PhD, you read and read and read, but at some point you really got to go out and field work. And it wasn't until me doing this documentary where I consider my field work, where I was really exposed to a different way and different view of prison culture, like very different. Like I want to like, it was like week and a half, 2 weeks, I'm on the road and really, it was emotional roller coaster because, my dad came home as soon as I was graduating college. So, from like 8, 9 years old till I graduated college, I'm in and out of prison visiting my pops. And so, mind you, he had been home now in 5 years. So I ain't been inside, visited prison at all in like 5 years. But the emotions came back up when I saw those barbed wires, like it was just seeing the barbed wires alone where the emotion and the smell and the feel of what it was to be a little boy going into those walls, and really like hearing the door shut when you're going through visitation and one door after another. And it's like, all right, you gotta wait. We gotta go to the next door. We gotta go to the next security checkpoint. Like those emotions came back up. And but it wasn't really until like really having conversation with men who had been formerly incarcerated, serving life sentence and coming home and serving 20 years, serving 22 years, and like really having conversation with these men and they're now home. It was a beautiful thing, but it was like very, very emotional. But the common theme was that they felt like that they were treated like animals. They felt like there was a number. Like that's a very like those words like animal and number as a way to describe how they felt was a common thing between all of
That makes sense. That's horrible, right? The
them.
number and animal are synonymous in the prison culture. They treat you like animals, but you yet a number.
Mm,
And again, thank God for your dad
mm,
coming home and making it and surviving that. What is the answer? So what's the answer? How can we fix the problem? How can we get ahead of this?
mm,
Well, not ahead of this because it's already in place, but how can we fix the problem? Do you recommend a removal of prison systems, or
mm,
what's the outcome that you hope to do
mm.
with this project, with these projects, several projects, and the
Yeah.
docu series?
Yeah, I think like as a prison abolitionist, the answer is to just, go to New York and open the doors of Rikers Island and say everybody go home, go to San Quentin and say everybody go home, or go to South Carolina and say Lee, everybody go home. I think it's more so like when we have to decarcerate, I think that's one of the answers. I think we have to really let people out who are not, who done. I mean, like the stories that I've heard, man, like that doc in that in while I'm filming that documentary, like elderly men who are, these are elderly men, who are going to go back out into society. Like, what are they going to do?
No
Like
harm.
they've like they've already served so much time, and I mean, like my dad said, he's seen men drop in prison. Like one guy on documentary said he literally seen a man go from being so muscular and so big to being, 100 and, 50, 40 pounds. These men are like they're dying in prison. So it's like, yo, like at some point we got to really figure out like who does first of all, like just looking at the makeup of this country don't have the means to say who deserves to die, who deserves to live. And prison shouldn't be a place to where you're there until your sentence up there till you die. It's there to be a rehabilitative center. And the point is that it's not doing what is quote unquote intended to do. And so I think we have to really, one, figure out other mechanisms of punishment outside of confinement because our society mind has been trained to say justice equals confinement when it shouldn't. And so
Mm.
I think it's about figuring out exactly what are other mechanisms of punishment to say that, okay, the victim and the person who committed the act are both made whole. The family of the one who lost their loved one to someone to a heinous crime are made whole. For me, I may say when I'm not my perfect self or my right mind, or when I'm not thinking correctly, may say I want that person to go to prison. But I also know me, if someone committed a certain heinous crime to one of my family members, at that moment, I might want to say prison is the answer. But when I'm my best self, that may not be what I want that to happen because at the end of the day, prison is only revenge for me, but I'm still hurting. I'm still not left whole. So what is the real true answer? And at the same time, like that person's family is now dealing with what I know they're going to deal with, which because when my father went incarcerated, although I was incarcerated, physically I was still incarcerated, and so we have to figure out a way to figure out what justice look like, and confinement for me is not the answer. So that's what's important about this documentary because the interesting thing is when we talk about the answer to prison culture or prison in general, none of those who have been incarcerated said prison is the answer. They gave other solutions, which is why this project is a very solution oriented project because those who have been in prison, neither of them said that prison is the answer to what people in society do or how prison can be, reformed or abolished, whatever the case may be, however one views prison culture. But they gave answers, they gave solutions. And I think it was more so most of their answers lean more towards a rehabilitative solution and a approach towards education, an approach towards mental health. These are the answers that they gave. I think that that's why this is important because you get those who truly have experienced prison give you answers to societal problems.
And what could have, yeah, no one, I can imagine that, no, right? No one comes out of prison and says, man, prison really helped me. Like, no one ever says that,
Nobody
right?
says that,
Like,
right?
yeah, they're like, yeah, I feel better. I'm glad I went. No one ever says that. No one
Mhm.
ever says that, and that's true. That's a great point that you made. Do you think the mistreatment of inmates? Did your father ever experience racism? Do you think did he ever mention that or anything was racially charged towards him just being a black man?
That's one, what's unique about this project, filming this documentary, one of the nervousness that I had was like really, his 5 years, excuse me, being home, he and I never talked. We touched on it. Like we probably put a finger on the subject. We had never talked about his experience incarcerated, and for various reasons. Do I want to open those wounds? Do I want to have him relive that experience? I'm like, not probably not. But I think for me, it was, for him, it was really like us knowing that during this documentary we're gonna have that dialogue exchange. And so we had a conversation about it, and I say I can say I never asked him about any racial experience. And I'm trying to remember. I don't think I had. We do have a story of one white guy who has been incarcerated since he was 15 years old, serving a life sentence. So that opened up a very different perspective for me, because I also know the county that he was incarcerated in is also the county that I grew up in. and it's probably one of the worst counties. You know, anybody would tell you, you know, oh, you gotta go to court in that county. Like, if you're a black man, you're definitely like you're going down the road. It's one of those areas. I mean, like, just driving through that city and driving through that county is like you feel race. Like, it jumps on your back. If you're from there, you will know. But you know, for me, I didn't really do the race thing in this project or try to like drive certain questions towards race, because I feel like prison itself is more so a like it's a class thing. You know, if you poor and white, poor and black, like, unfortunately, like, I think that this is you know, this is a common that's a common thing. I think it's more so just poor people in general are incarcerated.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. Some time has passed. Can you give some more? Can you give some tea on the Parchment Riot and the Mississippi Prison Culture docu series? Um,
Man, yeah, man, what's the T, man? I think this one's going to be this one is going to be more, I can say more touching, but I think the stories of one story in particular, man, I'll share this, and this is probably a big part, but it's a story in the Mississippi, the Parchment Riot, where you have these two brothers who find each other in prison, and one of them died in the riot, and you know, and so I think that's a T right there that I give. And you know, I know it's like a TV show, man, but it's a real life thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's like basically you in prison and you discovered you have a brother out there in the world and he's in prison with you. And, you know, you're trying to put your brother on this correct path. And, you know, it's too late. You know, you couldn't save him. You know, and I think that's one real story. And I definitely give, I mean, a shout out to one of the guys in South Carolina who made that connection for me, because the brother that did make it out, you know, is like the one who actually made it out. And so, you know, I get like pretty much the real story about what happened. You know, like, I get these people who genuinely like experience this riot. You know, I get that conversation with these people, like, yo, what really happened and who I need to talk to next. How can, you know, what's the real tea behind what happened in the riot and why it happened?
yes, sir.
Mm,
Yes, sir. Thank you for that.
mm.
You shared so much this episode, and and brother, you are powerful, man. I'm grateful to meet you, grateful to connect with you. How can others? The train has already left the station, right? You are making it happen no matter what. How can people connect with you and get on board and grow with you and support the movement?
Man, just, you know, go to public culture, www.thepublicculture.com, and check it out. On there, you know, you can go to my social handles at Jaquial Durham, JaQuial Durham. That's all my social handles. That's Facebook, that's Twitter, that's all everything. And then you can follow my nonprofit organization at For the Love of Community, or www.forthelovecommunity.org, and see some of the things that we're doing in the South Carolina community. But also, you know, I kind of gave this idea. Yes, I'm like, man, I'm going to expand out to the Atlanta community too. Since moving to Atlanta, I've been in Atlanta. You know, I see the things that, like, man, like, you know, like, homelessness is real amongst Black people here. You know, gentrification is real amongst, you know, people who truly from Atlanta, and really see the gentrification take place on steroids. So for me, you know, I want to expand out. You know, I think it's important that as an activist, as an organizer, that you know, wherever you are, you try to be a light in that community, wherever you are, but still at the same time ensure that you still giving back to your own hometown and own community. So, man, just follow me in the things that I'm planning to do, the things that I'm growing on. It's a movement, it's a marathon. You know, it's not a race. So, you know, these are the things I'm planning on. You know, I pretty much got like creative ideas and, you know, organizing ideas. Like, I'm pretty much like, I got things in the can I'm ready to put out there. So, you know, definitely follow me on my social handles, and you can see the things that I'm going to be, you know, spoon feeding as things get closer to launching out.
Powerful, 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 powerful. Y'all connect with this brother. This man is on a mission. He's on a movement. He's changing the world one household at a time, one community at a time. And so, brother, I want to say this to you publicly. Thank you for what you do. Don't ever quit. Don't ever give up. Because the world is changed by you every single day, and it's made better by you every single day. So don't ever quit, please. We need you.
No, likewise, man. Thank you so much for having me, bro.
Absolutely, brother.
Yeah.
And thank you, my audience, for tuning in to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I hope this message has served you and educated you and enlightened you on something that is absolutely a problem in our communities. The mass incarcerations of people needs to change. It has to change. It will change for the better. So, like I end every show, take care of your family, take care of your home, and take care of business. This is Marcus Norman, Gentleman Style Podcast Show, signing off. Love you guys. Bye.